Well, I guess there is a new Kendall in town. Kendall with one L, that is. Welcome into GC Live here on Gamecock Central, everybody. Jack Veltri and Kendall Smith, the original Gamecock Kendall, that is. No, I'm totally kidding. We'll get into that in just a little bit. We're happy that you're joining us here. We're hoping that you have had a great week so far. Jack, I know you had a good week, a busy week. South Carolina football just keeping us on our toes, as always.
Yes, as always. It's funny when I posted the link to this live stream on the Insiders Forum, I put it as GC Live. I always put it as GC Live at 3 p.m. or whatever with Kendall and Jack. And I put specifically in quotations, not Bryles when I put Kendall. So there you go. So
here's how everybody can know who is who. Okay. I'm Kendall with 2 L's, and Kendall Bryles is Kendall with 1 L. So that is the difference between us. But nonetheless, it is not official yet, but an unofficial warm welcome to Kendall Bryles, the new offensive coordinator at the University of South Carolina. That should be approved here shortly, Jack. A couple of other coaching announcements, coaching scoop that we have as well. But before we get into any of that, we've got our guy, Clint Hammond, to give a big thank you to.
Yeah, as always, talking about Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. If you've ever listened to me and Kendall yet before, you've probably heard us talk plenty about our guy, Clint, who is in the mortgage industry. Been in there for about 20 plus years now. He's also a lifelong Gamecock fan and a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central and all we do here on GC Live and on the website. If you are looking to buy a home, go to him and get in contact with him, 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597. Or go to ClintHammond.com for more information. Again, get in touch with him, and he will get you on that path towards buying that home you've always desired.
Clint, thank you so much for everything you do for us here at Gamecock Central. He powers GC Live week in and week out. And we are talking South Carolina's newest additions to the coaching staff, though not official. They should be official tomorrow. There is a Board of Trustees meeting. We always know when there's a Board of Trustees meeting, and on that agenda, they've got something to do with athletics contracts. You can bet that that probably has to do with a new member of the coaching staff, not just for the football team. It could go for any team. And South Carolina closing in. It's pretty much a done deal with Kendall Bryles from TCU. Jack, this is interesting. So a couple of years back, Kendall Bryles was all the talk in terms of the hot hire for a coordinator position. He has done a great job, and, you know, rightfully so. South Carolina fans seem to be pretty excited about this hire. So when you first received news that, okay, this is probably happening, what was your first reaction?
I was excited. I think we've seen the last few hires that Shane Beamer's made at the offensive coordinator position not really work out. You know, Marcus Satterfield, Dowell Loggins, each had some good moments, but overall, not really the best hires, I would say. And then we know what happened with Mike Shula. Just did not work out really at all this past season. Now you go out there and get somebody that's kind of completely different, Kendall, quite honestly, from anyone that Shane's ever hired in terms of the OC position. Kendall Bryles is a guy with 0 NFL experience. So that's number one. This is a guy that is called college football offenses at this level for years now at this point, and he's had a lot of success over the years. I've seen a lot of people maybe be a little bit skeptical because you see TCU fans out there that are like, oh, thank God Kendall Bryles is no longer our OC. But that seems to be kind of the a minimal part of that fan base, because it's going to be tough to replace a guy like him, especially after Garrett Riley was the OC before Bryles that they already had to replace. So I think this is a move that will get South Carolina fans excited. I think everyone's kind of ready to see this news be officially announced by South Carolina. Like, I can't tell you how many people on the message boards have just kind of been a bit impatient, I would say, just to kind of see. They want news. They want to see this thing happen. They want to see everyone get these spots filled out, and they're waiting for updates from Wes and Chris. I mean, it's It's been a lot, but I'm glad to see this. All these hires, not just Kendall Briles, but also, as we'll get into, Randy Clements, who's going to be the offensive line coach, and then Stan Drayton, who will be the running backs coach. Like, all three hires will be announced tomorrow when the Board of Trustees meets at 9:00. Kendall, you're on mute. Hasn't happened in a while, so it's okay that we got
to happen at some point soon.
Yes.
I think it's one of those things, Jack, where this news came out that multiple people on a national platform were reporting on Monday that Kendall Briles would be the new offensive coordinator for South Carolina. So that kind of waiting and anticipating to officially hear that from the university, it's obviously something where it's tough to be patient in those moments. So tomorrow should be that day. It is interesting to hear, though, some TCU fans saying that they're excited. Do you feel like that's more of like they're sad, so they're just saying that?
I don't. That's a good question, because, all right, let's be honest.
It's like, we didn't want him anyways. Like, bye. Yeah. Like,
I think. Well, you got to think about it this way, Kendall. I think TCU fans expected more from Briles, and what I mean by that is when Garrett Riley left to go take the job at Clemson as the OC, TCU was in the national championship. So the bar had been set pretty high. And since then, TCU hasn't made it to the Big 12 championship, let alone the college football playoff. I mean, there's been some ups and downs. And I think there's some criticism to be made. Like, TCU's run game wasn't really good this year. I'll get into more of what Briles brings to the table, what his resume kind of looks like in a little bit here. But I think there's some criticism, like how he runs slants and how he gets a little bit too cute down in the red zone. But overall, for South Carolina, okay, it's great that TCU fans don't think he's great, but another man's trash is another man's treasure. So I think this could be something where we've seen the last few hires for South Carolina haven't gone too well. This is going to be a completely different offense, that veer and shoot, air raid type offense, a little bit of tempo mixed in. Like, this is going to be completely different than the pro style offense that South Carolina ran this year.
And in my opinion, Jack, that is a great thing. It really is. And I know that a lot of people are excited. Kendall Briles has college experience through and through, and that is not the case of the last three coordinators during the Shane Beamer era. So let's get into it a little more. You talk about the air raid offense and just what fans can expect out of a Kendall Briles run offense. How do you see this shaping out for South Carolina from an offensive standpoint in the way that they play next season? With the asterisk, guys, of course, we don't know exactly who is going to be a part of the offense and on the roster, because so much is about to change.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up. Is this offense is going to look different. As I mentioned, air raid type of offense, a lot of tempo, a lot of moving pieces. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what this roster on offense looks like. And I think to bring in a guy like Kendall Briles, and I remember Shane Beamer mentioned it kind of last week, so there were coaches interested in this job that were kind of wondering, hey, like, am I going to have Lenore Sellers here, Nick Harbor? Like guys want to come here and work with the best, right? And, we don't know yet if Lenore is going to be back. We don't know if Nick Harbor is going to be back. But I feel like if Kendall Briles is willing to leave TCU and take another coordinator job back in the SEC, I feel like there's got to be a better chance that Lenore comes back, right? I mean, we'll do our weekly check-in on what we're feeling with Lenore, right? But I think there's definitely a possibility that Lenore comes back, knowing that, hey, like, Kendall Briles can make it work with a quarterback like Lenore. Like, the track record speaks for itself. He did really good things with KJ Jefferson at Arkansas, who I think is a pretty comparable quarterback to Lenore when you put on the tape. A lot of RPO in this offense, I think, is what you can expect, in addition to the tempo and the hurry up. Like, the RPO is going to be a big part of this Briles offense. And we saw KJ ran for over 600 yards in 2021 and in 2022, and then in 23 ran for over 400 yards. But he was doing that while also throwing for over 2,600 yards in each of his first two seasons with Briles, and then over 2,100 yards in 23. So there's a lot to like about that. And it's not even just KJ Jefferson. Go back to, Briles' lone year at Houston in 2018. He worked with a quarterback named De'Aaron King. If that name sounds familiar, he did play at Miami for 2 seasons, had some success there. But his best year came at Houston, which was with Briles, 2018, almost 3,000 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Rushing yards on the ground, it is insane. 674 yards and 14 touchdowns. So those are just 2 guys that he's worked with that are much more of your dual threat type of quarterbacks that have had a lot of success. So when you look at Lenore Sellers and the tough season that he had, it's hard not to imagine that he could do some really good things working with this Briles offense. And even for another guy that I'll bring up real quick, Kendall, that isn't your traditional dual threat, Josh Hoover, who's been the quarterback at TCU for the last few years, has had a lot of success in this offense, even though he's not your true dual threat guy. Threw for over 3,400 yards this year with 29 touchdowns. 13 interceptions isn't great, but he's had some real good success, almost 4,000 yards in 2024. So, I mean, this offense can work with any type of quarterback, I think, but it is best catered for a quarterback of Lenore Sellers' skill set, I think, just based on what we've seen in recent history of where Kendall has been and where he's coached and who he's been with. So I think this is going to be a beneficial hire for South Carolina if they get the right quarterback to go along with this type of offense. It's not to say that you can't make it work without a dual threat quarterback. Josh Hoover has proved that. But I think to get the best results, it's either got to be Lenore Sellers. Landon Duckworth has ties to Kendall Briles. He got recruited by him at Arkansas and TCU during those stops in his tenure coaching. So all that to be said, like this is, I know it's a lot, but he's got the track record. So he's got the track record of working with different quarterbacks and seeing results.
Yeah, I like that. And the biggest point this year that you and I would always talk about with Lenore Sellers is just feeling like there was maybe a level of confidence that was lost from the season before. And we were, of course, speculating on it. Is that because of a new scheme? Is it because of something Mike Shula told him? Is it because they were trying to make him more of a pocket passer and telling him, don't rely so much on your legs? And so knowing Lenore Sellers is obviously a dual threat quarterback and can be very successful, can he work out with a Kendall Briles offense? Well, we think that he absolutely can, but there are certainly other guys that can do it too. So we'll talk about Lenore Sellers a little bit later in the show. We did get a question about the offensive line coach, which brings us in to our next part of the show where we're talking about not just Kendall Briles being hired, but 2 more contracts expected to be approved tomorrow at the Board of Trustees meeting for South Carolina. They're expected to bring on Randy Clements, who is going to coach the offensive line. He is joining Kendall Briles from TCU, and then Stan Drayton will coach the running backs for South Carolina. That's what we're expecting tomorrow in terms of approval. So with those 2, Jack, what do you got? What should fans know?
Yeah, Chris Clark posted that on Gamecock Central this morning with that news of the other 2 assistants. And I know there's been a lot of plane tracking over the last few days. Chris and I have been at the airport for countless hours over the last few days. So yeah, so me and him on Sunday we were kind of going back and forth between the facility and the airport, and just, I mean, Chris had to miss some of his kids' Christmas performance or something for a little bit. So, and then me, I'm just watching the Bills game. I'm like, Chris calls me and I'm like, hey, I can go out there to the airport and do some looking around.
You sat there in your car?
I sat there in my car for pretty much the entire Bears-Packers game on Sunday and just waited for a plane from State College to come back, hopefully with somebody on it. Nobody was on it, unfortunately, but now we know there was a reason why South Carolina went to State College. I know I did not vlog it.
Yeah, no. Come on.
Why would I vlog that?
It's anything from me from the vlogging. You got to vlog it all.
You're right. Right.
That is hysterical behind the scenes. Going to camp out at the airport.
I know. I was
trying to figure out where planes are landing.
I was probably in my car from like 4:30 until probably like 8:30. I mean, I was just waiting at the airport, seeing what happens, and yeah, I mean, me stalking at the airport. I know. So, but it was funny. So that was fun trying to go a little bit incognito there for a little bit. Anyway, So that leads me into the point of why South Carolina took all these flights over the last few days. And ultimately, they will end up with Randy Clements, who will be the offensive line coach, and then Stan Drayton, running back coach. Let's start with Randy Clements real quick. So he will follow Kendall from TCU, although he was not the offensive line coach. He was the assistant offensive line coach at TCU. So there's that. So he's had lots of experience as an offensive line coach for good measure. He's, for instance, been the offensive line coach at Memphis, North Texas, Florida State. He coached with Lane Kiffin at FAU, Southeastern Louisiana. And the way Briles and Clements kind of intersect with each other is they were both at Baylor for a handful of years from 2008 to 2016. So we're talking about like the RG3 Bryce Petty years of Baylor football. So some good seasons there where those two had an already established connection. In terms of, I looked up the types of players that he's coached on the offensive line. No one that really stood out in terms of like big names. Spencer Drango, an All-American tackle, was two-time Big 12 Lineman of the Year, drafted by the Cleveland Browns in 2016. You got Danny Watkins, who was a first-round pick of the Eagles in 2011. You have Jason Smith, who was the number 2 overall pick in the 2009 NFL draft. So he's coached different guys over the years, and all those guys I just mentioned right there come from Baylor. So not like the biggest name offensive lineman that you might recognize, but still, he's got a track record of working with some good guys. And the same can be said for Stan Drayton, who is a longtime veteran in the coaching industry. And he's got a lot of track record in both college and the NFL. Of course, he is coming over from Penn State. Here's just a list of a handful of running backs that he's worked with over the years. Ezekiel Elliott, Carlos Hyde, both guys coming from Ohio State. Bijan Robinson, who was with Texas and now is with the Atlanta Falcons. Brian Westbrook, he coached him at Villanova, and Brian Westbrook went on to have a really successful NFL career with the Philadelphia Eagles. He coached Matt Forte in the NFL during his time with the Chicago Bears, which was when Forte had his best seasons. Jordan Howard also got coached by Drayton with the Bears, and Howard set the Bears rookie rushing record in his first season with him. And you got Jarius Norwood, who had a 1,000-yard season at Mississippi State with Drayton. And also, it's interesting to note that there is a connection to, not necessarily with Briles, but to Shane Beamer, who coached with Drayton back at Mississippi State under Sylvester Croom. So, all this to be said, there are connections with these hires. Like Briles and Clements coached together at Baylor and at TCU, and then Drayton and Beamer coached together 20-plus years ago at Mississippi State. So there's that.
Well, it's a small coaching world, as we very well know, Jack. It's making me laugh every time you say, and he coached with Kendall, and he did this with Kendall.
I know. It's throwing me. I got to just
say to be like, what is going on? No, but I have to get used to that now. I have to get used to Kendall now being referred to in Gamecock world as Kendall Briles. I'm now Kendall number 2.
Kendall with 2 L's.
Kendall with 2 L's, Kendall with 1 L. That's how we will know the difference between the two of us. Jack, yeah, a lot of people happy about both of these hires. And for South Carolina, I saw a comment earlier, you just need everybody to be buying in on whatever you're going with from an offensive standpoint. And that's what South Carolina was missing this past season, that cohesion. Obviously, it didn't lead to execution, what they were doing last season at all. So for South Carolina, you're trying to find something that works with the talent you have, because we never felt like last year the talent was the issue per se. When you looked at the team, it looked pretty much like you had a good group and the group would be able to be fairly successful. They obviously were not, but with these hires, we know that that's going to shake things up as well. So Mike Furry took over as the primary play caller for South Carolina. That's what they called it at the end of last season when Mike Shula was relieved of his duties. And then, of course, we've got Sean Elliott as well. What happens to them now, Jack, with these new hires?
So it would make sense that those two would still be retained on staff just in their original roles, because keep in mind, just because South Carolina has hired an offensive coordinator and O-line coach does not mean there's not room for them on staff. In fact, South Carolina can honestly, if they want to, just revert them back to their original roles of put Elliott back at the tight ends coach, and then you have Mike Furry at wide receivers coach. So I'm sure we'll get some more concrete revealed on that. It could honestly come with the contracts tomorrow, maybe something updated in terms of a raise for those guys. I'm not sure. Kind of speculation on that front, but I would imagine those two are going to be in their, original roles of wide receiver coach and tight ends coach. So I don't expect those guys to be going anywhere.
Waiting for updates on that, and we'll see when we hear from Shane Beamer next. And with all of this comes so this is something you talked about a lot, Jack, is when you hire an offensive coordinator, do you want to hire somebody that could potentially bring in their quarterback from their previous school to join them? We've seen this happen quite a bit over the college football landscape over these last couple of seasons, and we've seen quite a bit of success with it. If you think about a guy like Diego Pavia, that's example number one that comes to mind. There's certainly others out there as well. So Josh Hoover, the quarterback for TCU, can you see him becoming a Gamecock? And do you think it all relies on what Lenoris Sellers decides to do?
I actually could see him coming to South Carolina. It's not even for any of those reasons. Somebody commented it before, so shout out to them for doing that. But he's got the connection to South Carolina actually as well. Another connection, believe it or not. Josh Hoover's brother, Caleb, is on the baseball team here in South Carolina. So there's the other connection into all of this. It's not the craziest thing to think that Josh wouldn't follow Briles from TCU to South Carolina. And you mentioned kind of the Diego Pavia, comparison there of, New Mexico State. Tim Beck, offensive coordinator for Vanderbilt, came with Pavia from New Mexico State to Vanderbilt. Look how it worked out. We've seen this with Oklahoma and Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer. We've seen it before where coordinators and quarterbacks from one school go to the next school, have a lot of success. So I think it's definitely possible that Hoover follows Briles to South Carolina. You're right. It really does, I think, depend on what Lenoris Sellers does. I still think South Carolina could bring in a transfer quarterback, but I think it depends on, what your scholarships are looking like, how many spots you have on the roster. I mean, you're only going to really carry. I'm trying to think. So next year, let's lay out the quarterback room. You got Cutter Woods, Aaron Noland, Lenoris Sellers, Duckworth. That's 4 quarterbacks right there. Luke Doty's out of the picture. You add one more with Josh Hoover, and Hoover's been a starter most of his career. So I think you're bringing in Hoover if you feel like, okay, Lenoris Sellers isn't coming back, right? I don't think you're bringing in a multi-year starting quarterback that's done arguably better than Sellers in some respects just to be the backup, right? So I think you bring in Hoover if he's going to be your starter. I think you bring in a transfer quarterback if you really feel like you need one that is much more akin to like what Robbie Ashford was for you 2 seasons ago, where he wasn't going to start, but he was going to be a reliable backup for you that had game experience. So not sure what other players would come along. I would imagine maybe you'll get a few players from TCU, but I don't know for sure what that's going to look like right now.
Yeah, let's talk about the quarterback situation just for a second before we get back into all of these coaching changes. So do you think, and Shane Beamer talks about competition within the program all the time. Josh Hoover could come if he feels confident in being able to win out that starting spot, even if Lenoris Sellers stays. Do you think that could be realistic, or do you see no world in which that would happen?
I don't know. I think it's either got to be Lenoris leaves and goes to the NFL or something, and then you bring in a guy like Josh Hoover, or maybe he likes it at TCU. He is from Texas after all, and I mentioned that he does have the connection to South Carolina with his brother being here, but that doesn't automatically mean that he's going to transfer to South Carolina. Again, he's been a full-fledged starter at TCU for 3 seasons now, so he's got 1 more year of eligibility remaining. We'll see who TCU hires as their offensive coordinator as well. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen there, but I think it really does come down to, okay, what is Lenoris doing? So the other thing, what were we talking about there? With what was the other part of your question?
That was my question.
Oh, so that was okay. That was
Yeah,
just
you answered it. You answered it. And
okay.
it is going to be interesting to see how things pan out. We will talk about your opinion on whether or not Lenoris Stellars stays or goes, because
Every
we
week.
ask Jack every single week and he doesn't like it. So I'm just going to continue to do it anyways and put him on the spot. But yeah, let's say Lenoris Stellars does go. Let's say you don't get Josh Hoover. Then what quarterback on the roster currently are you seeing fit into this role best on a Kendall Briles run offense?
I've seen a lot of folks just on Twitter kind of be like, Aaron Nolan's going to benefit so much from Kendall Briles being the offensive coordinator. I could see it, but here's the thing: Aaron Nolan hasn't really, impressed me, or really most people. I think in his time at South Carolina, like he was kind of just, didn't really play a ton this year, right? He was kind of shelved for Luke Doty, won out the backup job over him, and Cutter Woods. Over Cutter Woods is expected because he's a freshman. But, Ayers had already a year in an offensive system at Ohio State. I mean, this guy was highly recruited coming out of high school. And so the fact that I think you're using Cutter Woods more than Ayers got to kind of tell you something, right? That he just wasn't really doing it for you. That said, things can change. I really want to see what Landon Duckworth does, because he's got the connection to Kendall Briles from over the years of being recruited at Arkansas and, at TCU. And now it's a good fit here at South Carolina. So I don't know. I think the quarterback that benefits most, in my opinion, I would probably say, it's tough to say Duckworth, because it's like, we don't know how long Briles is going to be here. We don't know the contract yet. We know that he's hopped around from different places over the years. He might want to be a head coach. He might not even be here after next year, because who knows if Shane Beamer is going to be here if South Carolina has a bad season. So there's a lot of different questions, but I think ultimately in the long run, I could see Duckworth really benefiting from being with a guy like Kendall Briles. I think that's a good fit for him.
Okay, so do you think Lenoris Stellars will stay?
There's the question. I knew it was. I talked about it this morning too on the radio, so I'm ready for it.
Talk about how I always ask you.
Yeah.
People want to know, Jack, and obviously you're doing some really in-depth reporting because you spent hours at the airport on Sunday. So
yeah. Hopefully Lenoris isn't on any of
you need to get an exclusive one-on-one interview with Lenoris. Lenoris, if you're listening, and I'm sure that you are, just know we are available for an interview whenever.
Yeah, you want to reveal your decision, you can come on here.
You're on GC Live Wednesday, 3 o'clock.
All right. So my weekly update. I've gone back and forth multiple times now where before the Clemson game, I think he was staying. And then after the Clemson game, I hear him giggling and whatnot. And I think, okay, he's probably not coming back to South Carolina. Now that we know that Kendall Briles is going to be the offensive coordinator, and I spoke at length before about the different guys like De'Aaron King and KJ Jefferson that have worked really well as dual threat quarterbacks in this type of offense. Just look at those numbers and think to yourself, like, if you're Lenoris Stellars, you got to think about it, right? You got to think about coming back, because those guys can have success, and you're arguably more talented than both of them for sure. Why can't you be that guy that has a great season, come back for one more year, do some great things, and then turn yourself into a top 5 NFL draft pick? So, all that to be said, as of, what's today's date? December 10th, my latest update, I am saying Lenoris Stellars comes back to South Carolina. There you go. So.
Okay, well, we'll see if that changes by next week. Everyone, by the way, okay, this comes from Jack and I, who also predicted that Lane Kiffin would stay at Ole Miss.
So you never know.
We're a little bit more dialed into the South Carolina scene, so it really is comparing apples to oranges in that regard. So, yeah, it's not the same scenario whatsoever, because we know a lot more about South Carolina than we would about Ole Miss ever. But we did predict that Lane Kiffin would be staying, and here we are. He is now the head coach at LSU. Yes, I am. Thank you so much for asking. What's up, everybody?
Yes, she is at Trust Field. How did the hockey games go, by the way? How did South Carolina
Great.
won,
South
right?
Carolina won in overtime.
Nice.
I believe they won in overtime. I've done so many hockey games since, but I'm pretty certain they won in overtime over North Carolina. They definitely won. So it was a chippy game, by the way, like lots of fighting, lots of physicality. So yeah, it's been great here. And I am at the baseball stadium here in Charlotte. Oh, should we get Jack singing?
Oh my God. No. No.
You don't sing?
Why would I sing Christmas? If I'm singing Christmas carols, you're joining with me. So
Hey, I love this time of the year, so I am not opposed to it
oh my God. All
at
right.
all. Jack. Okay.
Maybe during our Christmas week show, we will pull something like that.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna do a performance.
Maybe we can get Lenoris on to sing some Christmas carols and reveal his decision.
Drop your song requests down below, everybody.
Oh my
Speaking of Christmas, it's the time of year to shop. It's the time of year to buy, and we have a great place that you can go buy some belts or a car. Okay, you want to get somebody a car for Christmas? We got you, Jack. What do we got?
Wow, a belt and a car, totally two different ends of the spectrum. But let's start out with the belts at Palmetto Golf and Belts. It's in the namesake there. So if you love golf, you need to check out palmettogolfing.com for the latest custom-made gear. And even if you don't play, Palmetto Golf and Belts is a great place to grab a gift for that favorite golfer in your life. They've got custom golf gloves, golf tees, golf towels, all available in the garnet, the cross design, the palmetto tree and moon design, and so much more. One of the coolest things in the shop is the needlepoint belts, which are extremely well made, but also more affordable than many of the others on the market. Palmetto Golf and Belts is operated by Brandon Cohn, who is a big South Carolina fan and a longtime member over at GC. Our members on the Insiders Forum are loving the products that Brandon has in his shop, and he runs special deals all the time. So head on over to palmettogolfing.com today. Check out his shop. Support a South Carolina fan and GC member and get yourself some great gear. Lastly, we're talking about the cars now. Ferry Chevrolet, if you're a South Carolina fan out there who was interested in a new or even perhaps a used vehicle, make sure you check out our friends over at Ferry Chevrolet in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Led by a fourth-generation dealer, Joseph Ferry, the family-owned business over at Ferry Chevrolet has served the community since 1926. It is conveniently located just off I-26 between Columbia and Charleston. The folks over at Ferry Chevrolet are local, trustworthy, and always transparent. The business began in St. Matthews and was built on honesty, integrity, and a handshake, and they still operate with those same principles to this day. Head on over to ferrychevrolet.com today, check out their inventory, and to get in touch.
Okay, Jack, when will Kendall Briles be officially introduced in a press conference formally as the offensive coordinator of South Carolina? What do we think?
Yeah, so we got this question here from Ross DeBoss, 1986. Is Briles going to be introduced tomorrow? So don't think so. So I think what we're going to end up, typically what happens is we got the email today that the Board of Trustees meeting will be tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And so you have to usually have those Board of Trustees meetings scheduled 24 hours in advance.
Will you be there, Jack?
So I actually texted our good friend Colin Taylor today to see if because I wasn't sure if we were able to be in person for this meeting or not. He kind of recommended just doing it over the phone. So it's really going to be a short meeting, to be honest, since the athletic contracts are the only thing on the schedule. So this is a pretty quick meeting, hopefully tomorrow. Contracts get announced, and then you go from there. As far as when Briles and the other coaches would be introduced, typically it does not happen in the same day. We would have gotten an email about it by now. Once South Carolina officially reveals it, we'll get more info, and we'll have that on Central. I would either say Friday or early next week. I think it really just depends because you also got to get everyone here. And I know they had all the flights over the weekend, but, those flights were also going, from Texas and State College and coming here and then dropping those guys back off at their respective locations, right? So I don't know when they're going to be having it, but again, we will have all that info on Gamecock Central. It'll be all over Twitter too, I'm sure, when those guys are going to get officially introduced.
Yes, as always, we'll plug it. Head over to GamecockCentral.com for more. Jack, let's talk about the wider scope of college football. Before we get into it, though, any final thoughts on these coaching announcements for South Carolina?
I'm glad this process is over. I will be honest.
Jack's like taking a big exhale.
Yes, I am definitely glad that it is over. And one more question on the
I'm
introductions.
sorry.
Oh, you're good. I will at the meeting in the parking lot. Oh my gosh. All right. Enough. I'm not that crazy. I'm not TMZ over here. So
Jack, you camped out at the airport.
I was sitting in my car, minding my own business, waiting until I got out of my car once I saw the plane land. Like that was it. So the question here for Big Red.
That's it. No big deal.
Who will introduce Kendall Briles, the AD Beamer, or maybe both? Typically, I'm trying to think back to some of the other hires that were made when Shula was officially introduced, and I think Loggins as well. I think it was just Beamer, but because of the TCU connection, maybe it will be Jeremiah Donati. I'm not sure, but typically it's going to be Beamer giving some opening remarks, introducing the coaches, and then those guys will speak. And once we know when those guys are speaking, we will have more info, all coverage on Gamecock Central. But yeah, Kendall, I like these hires a lot. I think South Carolina fans should definitely be very excited about those hires. In case you are even more skeptical about those hires, because honestly, I myself was trying to figure out, what does Kendall Briles really bring to the table? I went straight to the source the other day and just kind of talked to a TCU reporter that covers the Horned Frogs and has been there the entire time that Kendall Briles has been there. So did a quick Q&A with him. So I will have that story up on Gamecock Central tomorrow afternoon in case you want to see more insight from someone who has covered Kendall Briles before and what he brings to the table. But yeah, Kendall, this is Kendall with 2 L's. This is going to be, I think, good for South Carolina in kind of a boomer bust year for Shane Beamer.
Yeah, it definitely is. You brought up one other point that I want to talk about, Jeremiah Donati, obviously with the connection to Kendall Briles. How much influence do you think he had on this decision? Or do you think that fully Shane Beamer decided to go this route?
Now, definitely going to be a little bit of different people. I asked Shane kind of that very question a few weeks ago, Kendall, of who all has input in this decision. I think we've talked about this before on GC, but just a quick recap. He did say, he'll get, input from Jeremiah Donati and Jeff Crane, who are both his bosses in the athletic administration. He'll get thoughts from guys like Lynn Norris, who we know they've kind of talked about some of the different coordinator options before. So there's different influence. Ultimately, it's going to be Shane's decision, but I can't help but think with the TCU connection, there was definitely some Jeremiah Donati input of already working with this guy, already hiring him before when he was the AD at South Carolina. So there you go.
Okay, let's talk about college football and the playoffs quickly. Jack and I like to do this towards the end of every show, so that way we can just stay up to date with what's going on in the world of college football.
Yes,
Notre Dame will not only be playing in the college football playoff, they will also not be playing in a bowl game this year.
So, yeah, you're right, Kendall. I'm glad people are asking us for our thoughts on this stuff, because then it makes it
Thank you, everybody. It makes it feel like we're not just talking to ourselves about what's going on.
It's not as impromptu of us just bringing it up. But no, I think my thought was I think the committee got it right, picking Miami over Notre Dame. However, I think the committee botched the whole process leading up to this point of putting Notre Dame ahead of Miami this entire time and then saying at the 11th hour, hey, we're going to pick Miami over Notre Dame because of head-to-head. Well, that should have been the case from the jump, so that way you kind of avoid this issue of Notre Dame being in the field. And then on a weekend where both teams weren't playing, Miami leapfrogs Notre Dame. So I understand Notre Dame's frustrations for sure. I feel like they deserve a better explanation than just head-to-head. But at the end of the day, I really do disagree with what Notre Dame is doing here of declining a bowl bid and kind of pouting about it. They're saying is play like a champion, but right now it's much more like pout like a champion. I totally fundamentally disagree with what Notre Dame is doing because, number one, you're losing out on 15 extra practices, and people may say that stuff doesn't matter. It does, in my opinion, because you're getting CJ Carr, a freshman quarterback, more reps. You're getting the guys that are coming back next year, more reps. And also, I find it hard to believe that everyone on Notre Dame decided to do this when you got a lot of seniors on the team that are going to, that would have been their last game, playing in the Pop-Tarts Bowl against BYU, which is the bowl game they would have been in. So overall, I'm not a fan of the way the committee handled everything leading into this point. I think they got it right, but I'm also not a fan of how Notre Dame is handling the aftermath of it. It's just a bit ridiculous in my opinion.
Don't we talk about that every single year, though? The committee needs to explain why they did this and why they did this. And I feel like it's just the story that continues to repeat itself every single year with the college football playoff. First of all, why would you decline the Pop-Tarts Bowl? Okay, that's a great bowl.
It's the People's National Championship. It's the People's National
Championship. Like, come on. But no, really and truly, I mean this. And I really do like Marcus Freeman a lot. I remember going to the Gator Bowl when South Carolina played Notre Dame a couple of years ago. He was phenomenal. I really like him. But I do not agree. I'm completely on the same page as you, Jack. I do not agree with not playing in a bowl game. I think that it's not great for college football when this starts to happen. And I really appreciated what Clark Lee said at Vanderbilt.
Yes.
At the end of the day, you have to take responsibility. And I know that it's too bad that, you think, okay, Miami shouldn't have made it over us, or Alabama. We could get into the whole conversation once again about Alabama this year, just as we did last season. There are certainly ways in which I could see Notre Dame being upset about this. I am not denying that. I am not invalidating how they feel or the fact that they think that they should be in the college football playoff. But at the end of the day, Vanderbilt and Clark Lee, in my opinion, have it right. You did not put yourself in a good enough position to be undisputed in the college football playoff. And if there comes a point where it has to be between you and a couple other teams and you aren't selected, and even if you think if you're the best and you should have been in it, and there's no doubt in your mind that that was your spot, you didn't win enough football games. You didn't do enough. There was something you didn't do to make it. So as much as you can say it's the committee's fault and point fingers at the committee, you have to take some responsibility at some point for not putting yourself in the best position to get there. Clark Lee really won me over. I liked him already, but he really won me over with that response. And his response of, yeah, we're going to play a bowl game here at Vanderbilt because we love to play football here. Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, Notre Dame clearly doesn't.
I would have loved to have seen Notre Dame play in a bowl game. They have a really talented group. I feel for the seniors. It's just an unfortunate way to end the season. They didn't realize a couple weeks ago, it's the last game you're going to play in a Notre Dame uniform.
It sucks.
That's too bad because there is something about knowing that. Like there's something about knowing, okay, this is my last time. This is the last time I'm putting on the uniform. This is the last time I'm going out there, and they're not going to get to experience that. And to me, that's too bad. And I know it was a team decision. So, hey, team votes on it. They vote on it. But we've now had this era of players opting out of bowl games, and now you're getting teams opting out of bowl games. It's like, then just cut the bowl games. No more. Don't do them anymore. If you don't make the college football playoff, you're done. Season's over. If they're going to start with this, which I don't think that should happen by any means. I love bowl games, and I think that it's great to be able to continue to see competitiveness in college football outside of the playoff, but it's just it's too bad. There is a lot going on, the conversation about James Madison and Tulane and Alabama making it in, but Vanderbilt not making it in. Yeah. And the last weekend of games, how you're comparing Alabama's win over Auburn to Vandy's win over Tennessee, and then essentially bringing down how successful Vandy was in their win over Tennessee, because they're saying now Tennessee is not as good and they're dropped in the rankings, but beating Auburn in a close game matters more. Then should the coaches get together and say, okay, let's keep this really close until the fourth quarter, and essentially whoever wins in the fourth quarter, let's just go all at it for that last quarter of play. Should they do that? It's like, seriously. Not trying to go off right now, but gosh.
No, go off.
Sorry, everybody. Go on about the college football playoff.
Well, I know we're gonna get you all fired up in a minute with this next comment right below here when we talk Indiana. But look, Alabama and Vandy, I don't think that's really much of a discussion because Alabama beat them in the head-to-head earlier in the year. The bigger discussion is more so Alabama and BYU because Alabama got left in the playoff while BYU was on the outside looking in. But I will bring that up because BYU was already on the outside to begin with. So when the penultimate college football playoff rankings came out, BYU wasn't in the bracket. Alabama was. That's important to note. Now, I don't think conference championship losses should necessarily deteriorate your chances, but ultimately, I think the committee kind of felt like, hey, BYU got smoked by Texas Tech twice, and like, what's their best wins on the schedule? Nothing compared to Alabama, who has, I think, 4 top 25 wins, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. Vanderbilt, Missouri. Who else did they beat this year? They beat Tennessee. I mean, they beat some pretty quality opponents. Georgia, they had the win at Georgia earlier this year, the best win, I think, in college football this season. I know they got blown out in the SEC championship, but let's also be honest with ourselves. There is a Bama bias, and you're not leaving the Crimson Tide out for a team like BYU. So the question, though, is, do you agree with JMU and Tulane being put in? I think the G5 deserves a chance to be in for sure, but the situation just is kind of whack this year, where you have the ACC has an 8-5 team as their conference champion. I mean, if Virginia wins, James Madison's not in the college football playoff right now. So I don't know. I think the G5 deserves a chance to be in, but I also think we're not getting the best teams in. We're giving out, participation to, make sure everyone has. You're trying to meet a quota, essentially, of getting conference champions in.
There is no rhyme or reason. I know that, conference champions, head-to-head, strength of schedule, we're talking about all these things. They're applying to certain people and they're not applying to others. It just doesn't make sense. And that's why I said last week, and I still stand by this, okay, next year, live stream it. Put it out to the world.
They got to get rid of the weekly rankings, though. I think
that stresses people out.
Just do the one big ranking at the end of the year. Let the AP poll do its thing or whatever. I don't know, but I think they got to get rid of the. And I hate hearing the explanations. Hunter Yurchek, honestly, I'm sorry to say, I think he's honestly a moron. I just don't think. Reese Davis was doing a great job of asking questions the other day, and you got Yurchek here skirting around the questions, not giving good answers, and the whole Miami Notre Dame answer he gave was just, BS in my opinion. So honestly, I think just going to, I don't know, they got to do something about the committee too in general. So, I could talk about this for hours, but we only have a little bit.
We definitely could. And we've talked about actually doing shows. Again, we know this is South Carolina based, and we will always talk about South Carolina, but doing shows closer to the playoff where we just talk about what's going on in college football. Yes, I do. The one thing that I do know, everybody, is that Indiana is number one. And guys, Jack was texting. I had so many people texting me this night. I was by myself. I had to just be in my own space. When Ohio State missed the field goal, I truly thought my eyes were deceiving me. I'm there's no way.
I know
that this is happening right now. There is no way. But yes, my parents both went to Indiana. Family went there. Grandpa, 92 years old, still lives in Indiana. And it was really special for my family. My grandfather, who's 92, still alive. That's my mom's dad. He used to go to games all the time with my late grandfather, my dad's dad. And that was what they would do all the time. They'd sit up in the stands with their big headphones back in the 80s and watch every single game together. And they truly were the best of friends while my parents were at school at Indiana and they were dating there. And yeah, it's just really special. My family has watched Indiana struggle for a long, long time. And so the opportunity to see them succeed, it was really special. And I think especially to beat Ohio State was awesome. So we'll see how they do. But you guys know I'm not going to be shy about it. Of course, I'm rooting for the Indiana Hoosiers in this college football playoff. And I think Curt Cignetti is amazing. Fernando Mendoza is fantastic. I think he is great. And we were very excited. The Smith family was very, very thrilled. And yeah, we loved this. That made it even sweeter. It was just the best case scenario, no doubt. So super proud of Indiana. And they've changed. We talk about landscape of college football. Curt Cignetti has changed the landscape of college football. No longer is it acceptable for a coach to come in and take a couple years to get things going, because you have a guy like Curt Cignetti who comes in and takes one of the losingest programs in Division I college football history and turns them around instantly.
Yep.
Now you don't have the standard where people can wait and have years and time to develop and get better. That's not going to cut it anymore. And everybody can thank Curt Cignetti for that one. We had a couple others. You guys are being so active in the comments today.
It's crazy. The comments are going off today.
Thank you so much.
I like this. Good comment.
That is so nice. Tell her I said thank you so much. And we got a few other things up here that I wanted to mention. Would love to do this. So Kendall Browse, I know you're watching too. Let's do like a Kendall ×2 interview. I think that would.
Let's have him join in on the Christmas carols that we're going to be doing. So.
We'll have Lenoris and Kendall Browse. I remember one time Jack titled the show I don't remember. It was something where people thought Shane Beamer was going to be on the show.
Oh my God, that was.
And it was like everybody was.
That was so ridiculous. So
Jack,
ridiculous.
What do we got? I feel like I still don't remember one.
And good job typing on this too, because easily could have been Kendall. All right. Ooh, my favorite Kendall. Well, I haven't met Kendall Browse yet. We'll see how he is in the media. That's a big factor. But I'm always going to go Kendall Smith. I mean, why not, right? I mean, that is the Kendall at the University of South Carolina. The University of South Carolina right there. So
the Ohio State University, as they always say. No, I'm kidding. I was at the Bronco Nagurski Awards on Monday, and Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech won it. But when they were announcing Caleb Downs from Ohio State, they're like, the Ohio State University. He's on the best team in the country. I was like, wait, I was the person. I was like, not anymore. I don't want to speak too soon, though, because who knows? It's very hard to beat a team twice. And if Indiana has to play Ohio State again, I will be scared.
It's crazy. The Bills are not missing the playoffs. All right, let's not. All right,
that's the way to get Jack going.
All right, timeout. I think that's about where we need to wrap the show. The Bills are not missing the playoffs. The Panthers, though, I'm excited to see the Panthers potentially win the NFC South. So I think
that's Bryce Young. Okay, shout out Bryce Young. I really like him, and I think that he has handled all of the flack that he has received with a tremendous amount of poise. So that is really, really cool. And I'm happy. It's crazy. I didn't think that the Panthers would be in this position. I didn't think Indiana would be in this position, but in the same way, I didn't think South Carolina would be in this position as well after the season. No. So that just goes to show you things can switch up really, really quickly. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. We're running up on an hour here. So we appreciate all of you for joining us on the show. This was a fun one. I really, really enjoyed it. And this is great because we're going to have so much more to talk about over these next few weeks. And next week when we talk, Jack, Kendall Browse will have been introduced to the media. You'll have the chance to talk to him. So you can get back to me and tell me then who is your favorite Kendall. But can you ask him? Can you be like, I know you don't know who she is, but can Kendall
you need to come to the press conference whenever it is, ask a question, because you know how they do it with these first press conferences. They're always like, say your name, affiliation, and then, you need, like Kendall. I think we got to get you there for the press conference. So that way you can ask a question and say, Kendall Smith, Gamecock Central, and Kendall Browse will be like, oh, so you're Kendall too.
Yeah.
You know? I think we need to see it.
Hey, I'm down. We'll just have to see when it is.
Yeah, we'll see.
Kendall, I'm Kendall. It's nice to meet you. I don't meet a lot of Kendalls, so.
Let's see it. You'll become Kendall Browse's new favorite after that, I'm sure. So
let's do it. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your Wednesday. For Jack Veltri, I am Kendall with 2 L's, Kendall Smith. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
See you guys.